Welcome back. Congressional leaders unveiled a 1,500-plus page continuing resolution bill to keep government funded through March 15th next year. It includes more than $100 billion in funding for disaster relief and $10 billion in aid for farmers. It also reauthorizes and extends the government's unmanned aircraft systems program. Many Republican lawmakers are slamming what they're calling Christmas tree ornaments in the bill, including duty-free Haitian apparel imports and lithium-ion battery legislation. It also moves the jurisdiction of RFK Stadium back to Washington, D.C., adds $50 million in inauguration expenses, allows E15 ethanol to be sold year-round, and includes 500 pages of health provisions. Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde, a member of the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, good to see you. What strikes you about this bill?
Good morning, Maria. Well, I'll tell you, the most egregious thing about this bill is you've got at least $110 billion, perhaps up to $125 billion, that is not paid for, that is unpaid for. That's more borrowing to our national debt. And that's just not what the country told the president and told Congress when they gave the president a mandate. Every swing state he took the popular vote, and the entire focus of the country was control spending in Washington, D.C., and this bill does the exact opposite to that. This is not following the theory of government efficiency.
So what can you do about it?
Well, we can certainly vote against it, and I will be voting no on this bill from what I have seen so far. But we simply need to tell the American people that they need to get a hold of their members of Congress and say this is not acceptable. This is not why we gave you the majority in the House, the Senate, and sent President Trump back to the White House.
But you don't want to have a government shutdown just a few weeks before President Trump comes in, right?
Well, we don't have to if we don't want to. We could send an actual clean CR for 3 months and not this Christmas tree, this cramnibus. I mean, where you've got everything from RFK Stadium and ticket sales to, everything that you mentioned there, E15, everything. This is truly a Christmas tree omnibus.
Wow. Let me get your take on the future, because the plan now is to do 2 reconciliation packages in 2025 as opposed to, again, another big omnibus plan where you would tackle taxes as well as the border. Where are you on that debate?
Well, I think the first budget reconciliation should be a smaller one and be focused on the border, because that's the #1 issue that we have right now, and that is security of our southern border. And that is so critically important, and I think the first budget reconciliation will deal with that and give the president an immediate win.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and you all want to have a win on the board right out of the gate, but is there a risk that the second reconciliation plan doesn't get done, and then you don't actually extend the tax cuts? Newt Gingrich said you need to commit to actually getting this signed into law by July 4th, and he's not sure you can do that. Here's what he told us this week right here on Mornings with Maria. Watch.
They need to have the Senate commitment to pass the tax bill by May 31st, to go to conference in June, and to sign the bill by July 4th. Reagan talked into having his tax cuts arrive late. We lost 26 seats in 1982. President Trump was talked into taking up a bunch of other stuff, didn't get his tax bill until late. They lost 40 seats in 2018. Keeping the House is the biggest single challenge for the Trump administration. So if you work back from keeping the House, you have to have the tax cut bill and the deregulation bill signed into law by the 4th of July, so it's affecting the economy so well and so powerfully that people are really happy in 2026.
So what about that, Congressman? Will you be able to do that? Will you be able to do a small border bill like you said you wanted, to get a win on the board early on before the president's first 100 days is up, and then come back at it and have something signed into law on extending the tax cuts by the middle of the year, July 4th?
I think that's a great plan. I think Newt is spot on in what he said. I think that first win needs to be chalked up very, very quickly, but then we need to immediately go back into the second budget reconciliation, where the Senate then comes on board, the House comes on board, and we pass tax reform, extend the president's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I think that is absolutely the plan that needs to be put forward and executed by Congress.
Well, I mean, what about this fact that you don't have the offsets in this current continuing resolution to hold the government open beyond Friday? I mean, you said it's not very Doge. The House Doge caucus held their first meeting yesterday. More than 60 members of Congress attended, including 3 Democrats. Senate Doge Caucus co-founder James Lankford also introduced 2 bills to cut government waste, one addressing unemployment fraud, the other extending the statute of limitations to prosecute COVID-19 recovery fund fraud. Congressman, I know you've got a bill which would allow the president to cut any amount of funding from any program without congressional approval. Right now, the federal government has to spend the full amount of money allocated by Congress every year. Tell us more about this and how you think this actually could be positive in terms of cutting waste.
Well, the power of impoundment has been a presidential authority literally for the first 2 centuries, 200 years of our country. And then in 1974, Congress passed the Impoundment Control Act, which seriously limited the president's ability to cut spending. Or, I mean, think of it like this, Maria. If Congress appropriates $10 million for a specific program, and then the president can accomplish that program with $7 million and save $3 million of it, save 30%, shouldn't he have the authority to do that? Well, actually, he does have the authority under the Constitution to do that. But in 1974, Congress unnecessarily and unconstitutionally limited that authority, and that's what my bill does. It strikes the Impoundment Act of 1974, giving the president unfettered access back, to what he actually has authority to do in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but you still have this issue of offsets and, borrowing and $36 trillion in debt. What's the plan there to address that come 25?
Well, I think the fact that we have a Doge caucus is great, but if the members that went to the Doge caucus really want to get serious about it, then they need to vote for an offset on this continuing resolution. Because without an offset, we're going right back to the standard swamp procedures that Congress is famous for. And that's not why the American people gave a mandate to President Trump and literally gave us back the majority, and we took the Senate. I mean, the American people, I think, are speaking loud and clear that we have to get our fiscal house back in order, and having unpaid for spending is not doing that.
Yeah. All right. We will leave it there and watch your work, Congressman. Thanks very much for walking us through it. Andrew Clyde joining us this morning in D.C. Thank you, sir.